Now is a good time to address the elephant in the room. We should be doing best practices here. And like I said earlier, we did this temporarily just to get Bootstrap working so we could see some results very quickly. But we're not following a best practice by linking a third-party style sheet up here. And also, it's not always the best idea to crowd up your home page or your head section with a bunch of custom styles. It's better to separate this in a separate file. So let's start by moving this stuff, this CSS stuff that we added. We're going to move it over, and you can do this in a number of ways. What I'm going to do is go into WP content, go into the themes folder, and then our custom theme folder, and I'm just going to load it into our main style sheet for our website. So I'm going to double click, and I'm going to load it in here. So I'm going to copy, not the style tags, we're going to get rid of those. I'm just going to copy all of this stuff, the actual CSS code. Okay, so the style tags are HTML, this is CSS. I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to take it over here, and we're just going to drop it in here. We'll clean this up a little bit, just like this. If you hold Shift and Tab, whatever you've highlighted will move backwards. And then if you just push Tab while it's highlighted, it'll move the other way. So there we go. This is how you want it, this closing curly brace lined up with the beginning of the CSS selector. Okay, so we've moved that here. I'm going to save this file. Remember to save it. And then I'm going to go over here, and I'm just going to remove this. And I'm going to remove those style tags because we're not going to use those. Okay, so if I save this now and make sure your server is running, mine is running here, I'm going to go over to our home page. If I refresh, it's gone now. Those styles are gone, so it's not working. There is something going wrong. This style sheet is not kicking in. Okay, and we can even confirm that by right-clicking over here and hitting Inspect, and then going into our head section, and you'll see nowhere in here are we getting the styles from our style sheet with those background colors. You just won't see them in here. So they're not being loaded right now. So by default, that style sheet doesn't get loaded. So this is where a best practice comes in. This is one of them. You know, you don't want to crowd up your head section with random styles. But another best practice is utilizing the functions.php file. So this is one of those acknowledged theme files. You'll find it in almost every theme. So we're going to go ahead and add it. So in here in custom theme, I'm going to right click and I'm going to say new file. I'm going to call it functions.php. And so this particular file is for adding kind of custom functionality to this particular theme. Okay, and you got to understand that when you switch themes, whatever you put in this functions.php may not show up in your new theme. This is just functionality related to your theme, so styles and menus and things like that you really want to just customize to this particular theme. If you use plugins, those will stick around no matter what, you know, whichever theme you add. But in this case, you know, if you just want to add styles for one particular theme, you want to put it in here. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to add some code in here. So first we need our PHP tags. And this whole file is basically going to be PHP for the most part. So I'm just going to have an opening PHP tag up here and a closing one down here, and we'll just fill this in. Okay, so what we're going to do is add this function, and we're just going to call it enqueue custom theme styles. That's a function, and then in here we'll add these curly braces. This is just a PHP function. Okay, and then inside we're going to add a WordPress function, and what we're going to do is WP underscore enqueue style. So enqueue means to just load up in a queue, right? To load it up in a certain order. And then in here in parentheses, we're going to say bootstrap. And then in here, we're going to add our bootstrap link. So we'll just grab all of this. We don't want to grab the HTTPS : we're just going to grab the /. So I'm going to copy all that, go over here to functions, and drop that right in there like that. Then we add the semicolon. Okay, and then from there I'm going to do this again. So WP underscore enqueue style. You can use your tab key to autocomplete. And in here we're going to do custom theme dash style and comma after that. And we'll just say get underscore style sheet URI. And we spelled that wrong. Make sure you spell this correct. So style sheet URI. And then let's save all that. We need to add one more line of code right below this. We'll say add underscore action. And then WP underscore enqueue scripts this time. So it's a little bit different. Comma. And then the name here that we've given it. Custom name of this function. Just like that. Add our semicolon and save it. So now let's head over here. Let's make sure this is all cleared out. We're going to get rid of this line of code. So I'm just going to comment it out for now. So command / to comment. After you highlight, you can also go to edit while it's highlighted and click toggle comment. So it's commented. I'm going to save this, make sure all these other files are saved. If we go over here and refresh, there we go, our styles are kicking in properly. And just to illustrate what was going on, these styles are now working from our style.css file. But the problem is that it wasn't loading before. This line of code is what loads it in. Okay, so if I get rid of this line of code, I can just comment it by highlighting it and doing the comment command /. Now save my file. Go over here and refresh. It's gone. So this line of code, basically, just to explain it, is saying, hey, let's enqueue a style sheet. We'll give it a name, something sensible like our theme name, and just say style next to it. And then this is a special WordPress function that says, okay, grab the main style sheet URL and place it right here. And this enqueue style function basically accepts these two parameters and some other parameters. And it says, okay, we're going to load this up. One other thing I want to show you is order matters when it comes to your CSS. If I were to load this before Bootstrap and save it, let's see what happens. Let's refresh. It's coming in, but only partially. The color isn't coming in. So we're adding in some background color, but we're not getting that white text. So order matters. We want to put this after Bootstrap because we want Bootstrap styles to load, and then we want our styles to override anything that Bootstrap does by default. In this case, Bootstrap makes our Jumbotron text black by default, and really just all of our default text is black. And so we were able to override that when we said color white. But this won't apply, color white won't apply unless it shows up after Bootstrap. Okay, so I know that's a lot to kind of take in if you're new to this, but just know that CSS order matters. That's kind of the takeaway here. One last thing I want to talk about while we're here is this line of code. Okay, so this is what we call a hook in WordPress, right here, where it says WP enqueue scripts. Okay, so what we're saying is we're adding an action to a hook. So what I mean by that is this. I'm going to break this down in very simple language. Okay, so whenever you reload a page or load up a page on a website, okay, a lot of different things happen. A lot of different functions are firing, and it all happens in a split second. And there's an order to these operations. So one of the things that happens is this hook right here. This hook allows us to jump in at one point in the chain of events and then add our own code. We can kind of inject our own code in the chain of events. So there are a ton of hooks that kind of fire off in sequence in a very specific order whenever you load up a WordPress page. So every time I hit refresh, what's happening in the background is a ton of different functions are firing in an order. And the cool thing about WordPress is it has this hook system where we can hook in. We can jump in at one of those events that fire and load something in. And so we want to load these style sheets in these two, before the page actually loads any of this stuff. And since this happens in a split second, you can't see it. But basically, the page would look like this at some point as it's loading. If I comment that out and save it and refresh, our page would look like this. Okay, but you don't see that because all of this happens in a split second. So the hooks are firing one at a time, and at some point this hook fires, and when it does, it looks for a function called this, which we named right here, and it should fire off the code in here. So if I comment that back in and save, you'll see all of this happens in a split second. It's looking like this in the background, but then those style sheets load, and it looks like this. All the styles come in, and then the page loads. I'm just trying to illustrate that. That may not be the exact order of events. The HTML content here may load before or after. That's not what's important. What I'm trying to get across is that there is an order to these hooks, and you can hook yourself in by creating these custom functions and then picking out which part of the loading process you want to jump in on to load your custom code. We'll see some more of this down the line, so if that didn't make too much sense, don't worry, just hang in there. We're going to see much more of this down the line. We'll get familiar with how hooks and actions work.